All right, and we're back. Welcome to Kayfabe Corner here, the weekly chat show, which has one of the professionals of professional wrestling. This is Jordan Chris Owens. This week, I'm joined by the legendary Bob Cook. Bob, how are you tonight?
Legendary. I kind of
Yes,
like
sir.
that, even if it's not true. But I always thought kayfabe was dead, but your show seems to be alive and well.
I think so. We've been having some fun here. I'm very glad to have you on the show. I think you're legendary, man. You've been involved in some great matches throughout the course of time. Some big names, big companies. We'll get into it here very soon. I'm very glad to be chatting with you here. Let's start from the origin, though. Are you a fan growing up? Where does the start of pro wrestling begin with you?
Yeah, I was definitely a fan. I moved from Michigan to Florida in 1975. Met a kid named Dale Deibler. Amazing I can remember that, even though I haven't seen him in 40 years. But we were playing basketball one day. He said he's got to go home and watch wrestling. And I said, wrestling? What are you going to watch that stupid crap for? And I went home with him and watched it. I fell in love instantly. Terry Funk was going crazy. Gordon Sully was calling the action, and I thought I discovered gold.
That brings me to the next question. So, who were some of your early favorites? You mentioned Terry Funk. Who else really grabbed you?
Yeah, Terry's my all-time favorite. But back in those days, I mean, I love superstar Billy Graham, Ox Baker because he was just a crazy character. The Spoiler. There's an old, the old Apter magazines as they call them. I sent in for pen pals in 1977 or something, and made my pictures in the magazine. And my favorite wrestler at that time, I had listed the Spoiler because he was causing havoc in Florida. I was more of a bad guy liker than those nasty baby faces, which in real life, strangely enough, aren't as nice as the bad guys.
So when is your journey actually getting into it begin? Was it something you had thought about for a while? How old are you, and where do you begin?
Yeah, I wanted to be a wrestler. I can't say instantly as when I saw it, but I like to say that because who knows when it really was. But not long after I started watching, I thought, man, I would love to do that with no idea how to do it, obviously. I mean, I tried to Google it, but nothing came up. You know why? Because there was no Google.
As I say, no Google.
But we did. I went to my first live wrestling match right up the road here in Venice at the Venice High School. The main event, Dusty Rhodes against a Missouri Mauler in a tape fist match. My dad hated wrestling, but he took me to the show and he took pictures of it. I still have them today. Of those little Polaroids. You take a picture, it comes out instantly. Not good pictures, but a great memory. And we used to do the backyard wrestling, not the crap that you hear about today with light tubes and all the stupid crap, or idiots like Superhero or Super whatever that guy's name is, Super Idiot, Superhuman. That's his name. Didn't want to disparage the man,
No, not at all. He has such a good reputation.
but yeah, we did all that stuff. And I had moved to Tampa in 1981 after I graduated from high school, at whatever age I was, 18, I would suppose. Maybe it was 23. Did I? I was a pretty stupid kid. No, it was 18. Uh, but I moved with a friend to Tampa. He was going to be an electrician. He went to electronic school briefly. And I had the intention of being a wrestler, not knowing any idea how I could do it. Now, I'd known that the Tampa Sportatorium was where they taped the Wednesday morning championship wrestling from Florida television show. So naturally, that's the first place I went. And I went there after a show one day, and Gordon Nelson, who was an old time wrestler, at that point was more setting up the rings and refereeing. But I asked him, I said, how do you get into business? I was only an 18-year-old kid, and he's like, well, you got to be in really good shape. Come in for a tryout, which in those days meant they're going to stretch you, break your legs, do everything they can to discourage you. Fortunately, I know I'm rambling, but fortunately, I didn't experience that because the next week I was at the Armory in Tampa, the famous Fort Homer Hesterly Armory. And I came out of that show, and there was a flyer on my car that said, become a pro wrestler, make big money, travel the world, be a TV star. And it was the great Malenko. And I still have the flyer today. And I went to the school the next day. I met a guy named Carl von Stroheim, who was Malenko's partner at the time. He was a NWA World Tag Team Champion with his brother Kurt von Stroheim. You can tell they were playing Americans. No, they were a German heel gimmick. But anyways, in the next week, I met Malenko, and I started training, and the rest is history.
So, what year is this?
1981.
Okay. So, you start going along now in the business. Is it always Bob Cook as the name? Is that your real name, or how does that come across?
Yeah, that's funny. That is my real name, and as stupid as it sounds, I mean, back in those days, you're sitting around thinking, what should I call myself, this or that? And Carl von Stroheim had told me, he said, why don't you just use your real name? Why make someone else famous? And I'm thinking, you think back now, and I go, okay, let me think. The guy who used the name Carl von Stroheim, which wasn't his real name, is advising me not to use a fake name, but use my real name. Okay, I'll do that, Carl. And look at what happened to you. Nothing.
Well, I don't know about nothing, but you mentioned other names. Now, I do have a couple of names on here I got to ask you about. I see you have been billed, and tell me if this is true or not, as both Master Superstar, Mighty Yankee, and Piranha Steel. Tell me about that.
Yeah, those are all true. I also was Bob the Crippler Cook on some of Malenko's independent shows that he would run back in that era to give us students a chance to perform in front of a crowd, And Bad Bob was another one. That's really catchy. That was a really good one. All the fat chicks loved me when I was Bad Bob. But anyways, yeah, the Piranha Steel thing was just short-lived. That was for Global Championship Wrestling in '87, something that Bob Roop and Malenko and I can't remember who else was involved, but they did tapings down in Miami. And Angelo Paffa was my manager, and my partner was a guy named Brian Carr, who's no longer with us, but he was a crazy, fun guy. He worked as Shark Murphy, and I was Piranha Steel.
What about a Mighty Yankee?
Yeah, that started in '87 after I got in with Championship Wrestling from Florida. Mike Graham and Kevin Sullivan put that together. Like they said, called Jerry Gray and I in the dressing room. Hey, we want to make you guys a tag team. Call yourselves the Mighty Yankees, because they were both baseball fans. That's where that actually came from. And of course, we didn't care. I mean, hell, it meant more money, more bookings, and so we did it and had a lot of fun. We won the tag team championships from Mike Graham and Steve Kern, which, believe it or not, you actually got paid more when you were the champion, because you were like in the main event, semi-main event, and that was just a blast. Absolute fun.
Oh, so it's actually true. You did get a pay bump for being a champion.
Yeah, I mean, back in those days, we were making between 50 and 75 a night, and then when we were champions, we were making between 125 and 165 a night, which ain't a huge bump, but when you're working like 7 nights a week, it certainly increases your ability to waste money at the strip clubs.
What are some of your favorite matches from the early days? Like, who did you really click with, and who taught you and guided you?
Well, I learned from the great Malenko, but Joe Malenko and Dean Malenko would come by the school as well, so you worked out with them a lot. And then on the independent shows, I can look back at the old flyers that I have from those days, and I worked with Dean and Joe several times on those shows, and you learn every night working with them. Well, you learn from everybody you work with, but from them, because they were so good. I mean, in the early days, they were the guys you learned from. But then when I got in Championship Wrestling from Florida, I mean, you're learning again every night, working with Kevin Sullivan, Bugsy McGraw, Mike Graham, Steve Kern, Gary Windham, Kendall Windham. It was just Blackjack Mulligan. It was so much fun. I can't even speak bad about any of it, which is kind of sad, isn't it? It means it was perfect. Nothing's perfect.
What are some of the favorite territories and promotions you've worked with? And was it mostly Florida, or where else did you travel to?
Yeah, I didn't go out of Florida a whole lot. Other than when we got in championship or world championship wrestling, we traveled all over the country, losing all over the country. What a way to make a living. Anyways, I went to Memphis a couple of times, which was fun. Luckily, it was short-lived because you didn't make much money there. I think I lost money each time I went there, but it was fun. And but Florida was my favorite of all, simply because that's what I grew up on, championship wrestling from Florida. But Suncoast Pro Wrestling, something that Malenko was involved in with a guy named Henry Raines, in '89 to like '92 or whatever it was, where I was the Mass Superstar. That was a blast. I made hardly no money, but I had so much fun because I got to feud with Dean Malenko and team with Nasty Ned and all kinds of other fun things, Dick Slater and others. And that was just a blast. You want to know how much money I made then?
How much?
Henry Raines, who was the owner of the company, owned a comic book store in Bradenton, and he had a whole bunch. Every month he would get all the wrestling magazines in as well. So what I got paid to be the Mass Superstar was $20 a show, and all the wrestling magazines I could take from his comic book store, which I would stop by on my way to the show each month. Is that sad or what?
I actually kind of love it. I want that booking fee.
Yeah, I have all those magazines still. I just sold a 1978 wrestling magazine for $200 on eBay. That cost me $1 in 1978.
That's fantastic. Yeah, put some of those up. I'll take a look at them.
I got like 2,000 old wrestling magazines. If they could all go for $200, I'd have how much? 47 million minus take a 2, carry the 1. Not a lot, but a lot.
It sounds like a good chunk of change. Don't ask me to do math, but it sounds like a good chunk of change.
Yeah, even though they wouldn't all go for $200.
So you're in, of course, the two biggest locker rooms of all time, both WWF and WCW. Was there any difference between the two locker rooms when you were there?
Not really. Most of the guys, well, like when I was at WCW for 6 years, from '88 to '94, and I was only in the WWF for 1 year in '95. But you knew most of the guys because they'd switch out. By the time I got to WWF, Kevin Nash was a world champion, so you knew him from WCW, and Scott Hall. I knew him from Florida even. Actually made my most money for one match wrestling Scott Hall at the Orange Bowl in Miami in '87. So you knew all those guys, so that part wasn't much different. I found the WWF at that time was more laid back. WCW, the guys were laid back, but the management in WCW was more chaotic. It was like too many cooks in the kitchen and nobody knew the recipe. They tell you to do one thing and another guy tell you to do something else and someone else tell you to do something else just before you go out. They tell you to do something else and you come back and they'd ask why you didn't do that. So, it was a little different than WWF where it was just much more laid back. Plus they paid cash.
Oh yeah, this is just straight up cash and in the hand for WWF.
Yep, you had to sign something, and they'd send you a tax thing, like at the end of the year. But everybody would stand in line. Not everybody, the losers I'm talking. Every loser. But we'd all stand in line, and Arnold Skolin would sit there with a scowl on his face, and you'd have a big briefcase filled with cash, and he'd give you your money, and you signed the thing that said you got it, and you go down the road. But they also paid to fly us, rent cars, hotels, whereas WCW wouldn't fly us. We had to drive, which I didn't mind because it meant more time away from my wife.
Would she like to hear that? Is she still around?
Well, she's a whore, and I'm not with her anymore, so I could care less.
All right, all right. Of course, the long list of names. I'm just looking at a little bit towards the end here. I mean, Lex Luger, British Bulldog, Adam Bomb, the Boss. I see Marcus Bagwell. Any particular good stories? Anyone that was really fun to work with, or even the opposite?
Most of those guys were a blast to work with. I mean, you can think in WCW, the one person I didn't like to work with, luckily I think I only worked with him once, was a guy named Bill Kazmaier, who was just a big muscle head. He was only there for the money. He wasn't much of a wrestler. He was a famous power lifter in his day, but he was a real jerk. Stiff, clumsy. But most of the guys in WCW, I mean, all the fans like to talk about how, wrestlers should be stiffer, I like hard hitting. I don't remember anybody telling me to hit him harder back in those days.
I mean, and you're known for one of the best right hands. I mean, I've heard Mick Foley personally say it himself. So, I mean, how would you say the art of it is? I mean, are you just hitting them, or how's it go?
No,
What would you say?
The opposite. I'm Bob Cook. I was a nobody. I wasn't a tough guy. Malenko taught us a few shoot moves when we were starting and to protect ourselves if we needed to. But I wasn't a tough guy. There's no way I'm going to hit Mick Foley or Flair or the Road Warriors or especially the Steiners with a real punch. So I always took pride in making it look as real as possible without barely touching the guy. And most people said I did a pretty good job of that, even though I was blind as a bat.
Hey, giving you even more credit then, yeah, because I mean, you've heard it from several people. Like I said, I've heard Foley say it himself live up on stage.
He even said it in his DVD.
There you go. Now it's very, very widely reported from him. Yeah. What is do you know, like I see the last build match here is with Lex Luger and British Bulldog. Do you know why it comes to an end here in 95?
Yeah, because I got sick of being in pain all the time and being hurt all the time. I was getting hurt. And if you can watch the evolution of Bob Cook, which is like watching paint dry, but at the same time, when I first got on TV and I was thinner and I gained more weight, got more weight. And as the years went on, I got in worse shape as opposed to better shape like you should do. And that affects you negatively all the way around. Every bump hurts more. And I just got tired of it. And I found a job that I was able to tolerate and decided to quit wrestling. I did independence here and there, but that was like the last TV stuff.
I was say, did you keep going? Because I know at least on Cage Match, there's a big gap from 95 to 2010. Were you still going actively between them, though?
Yeah, here and there, here in Florida, just, independent stuff. Nothing.
You never fully stepped away from it ever?
No, I mean, I wrestled on Dory Funk Jr. show last August.
Oh, no, and we both do the Fighting for a Cure usually every year. Oh, yes, I still see you're still out there, still going.
Well, yeah, we had that debacle at last year's Fighting for a Cure. That was fun.
Wait, what happened there? What was the debacle?
I don't remember who the guy was that was supposed to win the match, the battle royal. I don't remember what his name was, but I was supposed to be the last guy in the ring with him. And he's in the dressing room telling me that, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then you take a bump over the top rope. And I said, look, kid, I'm 55 years old. I'm not here to take a bump over the top rope, because Joe had said what I would do was, when it's down to the last two of us, was to get on the microphone and say that this match means more to you than it does to me, because it was a benefit, or not, was it a benefit? Besides the cancer, it was also a tribute to that guy, Rex
Rex
Backus.
Backus,
Right?
yes, Rex Backus.
And I told the guy, I said, look, I'm not taking a bump over the top rope because I'm old and fat. And he was like arguing with me, like, well, that's not going to be exciting. I said, look, I'm not here to be exciting. The funniest part was Mick Foley was sitting there, and he says, yeah, I've known Bob for over 30 years. He's not exciting. But the guy just kept pressuring, and eventually my friend Darlene went nuts and started yelling at the guy, which, was kind of embarrassing, but fun that she stuck up for me. I mean, I wasn't going to fight the guy, but I was just telling him, look, I'll do whatever we can do, but I'm not. And I even told him, I said, look, find somebody else. I didn't want to be the last guy in the ring anyways. That's what Joe asked, and I'm kind of a team player. If he says, hey, I'd like to do this, okay, I'll do it. But I wasn't going to take a chance on hurting myself for nothing, so that's what I call the debacle. But it worked out all right, because I ended up doing what we were supposed to do. Again, I'm not a promoter's nightmare. If someone asks me to do something, I'm going to say yes or no, sir. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to put up a fight.
I understand that for sure, for sure. We talked before about McFoley, and then you mentioned Bill Kazmaier. I know another person you've mentioned before in the past. You're not a big fan of is Vader.
Oh yeah. Luckily, I never had to work with that fat crap.
Oh, see, you avoided that. That's good.
So yeah, Jody Hamilton was the guy. He's the original assassin, and he was the guy that booked TV matches or put them together when you got to the show. And he just always made sure I never had to work with him. And I even thanked him a couple years ago to Fans Fest. We did it in Tampa to say, did I ever thank you for not making me work with Vader? Well, thank you. Because he hurt so many guys, and he had no respect for anybody. And he was a complete asshole outside the ring and inside the ring. And people like that don't even belong in the business, regardless of what wrestling fans think based on the push they got.
So, again, the long list of names you've been in the ring with, the Steiner Brothers, Rock and Roll Express, Bobby Eaton, Ron Simmons. Is there anyone you didn't get a chance to be in the ring with that you always thought you'd have a good match with and that you just missed out on, unfortunately?
I would have loved to work with, excuse me, Terry Taylor and Shawn Michaels. Never got to work with them. I think it would have been a blast. The Macho Man would have been fun. I never got to wrestle him. I worked with his brother and his father. I worked with Angelo Poffo in the 80s when he called himself the Miser, where he wore a mask. So that was fun. But those are the main two, though, Terry Taylor and Shawn Michaels, I think.
No, good picks, absolutely. Anyone local, like from Florida, throughout the years, before or even now, that you think you'd have a good match with?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I mean, I don't follow the wrestling much as far as independents go. I had a match with Tony Storm a couple years back, and that was fun. I was horrible, but he was good. It was easy. But I was, just usually in horrible shape. Shouldn't have been in the ring. But it was fun.
So you've seen a lot throughout your years. What's something that you think is missing in the new school that has been lost throughout the years?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think ultimately respect for the business and what it originally was meant to be. And that is to basically pull the wool over people's eyes and convince them what's going on is real. Even though people always knew it wasn't real, when they're at the show, they want to believe. And that's lost, the ability to make them believe, because the wrestlers don't believe anymore. In the old days, it was most important. You were taught that. That's the one thing I told you earlier, Michael taught us. Make it look real without being real. Make it look stiff without being stiff. Convince the people it's real. Don't convince your opponent it's real, because he already knows it's not. And if you want to make it real, well, join UFC.
If you had come across a little bit later, do you think you would ever join UFC or MMA?
No, I wasn't a tough guy. Crazy.
Let's say you were coming across. I'm sorry, continue.
I was just saying, I'm a big fan of Muhammad Ali, but I've always thought that actual fighting is stupid. I mean, you're punching each other in the face.
Uh,
I like fake fighting. Sorry if that offends people, but I like fake fighting, and I like Ronda Rousey. And she said it was fake fighting, so I'll take her word for it.
no argument here if she was in front of me. I wouldn't argue with her. Um, kind of the same question from UFC. If you were coming across now, like if you're a young kid now, you think you'd still be getting into wrestling now?
I don't think I would. I can't. I mean, who knows? For me, what it really grabbed you as a kid. Well, I mean, obviously, well, you're talking if I was a kid, but the characters back then were just so much. I don't know. Wrestling just seemed so outlaw. It's like it was no rules. It was just unorganized, organized chaos is basically what it was. And then it come across that way today, but I just can't because the wrestlers again they don't portray it the same. I mean, you could get into it and you go, oh look at man. If you tuned in like last week and you saw Chris Jericho and Tyson, this first time you ever saw wrestling, when you're a kid, you might go, holy crap, man! I remember Mike Tyson. Wow, that's really cool. And then you go on Instagram and you see Chris Jericho and Tyson playing Kissy Face. Instantly, you're like, oh, well, geez, that's not real. It's not exciting. I would lose interest that way. They didn't do that back in the old days.
Right.
God, they were so kayfabe back in the old days. I remember standing behind the Bayfront Center in St. Pete, which was my favorite arena to wrestle in because it was like our Madison Square Garden of the South. It was shaped like the Garden round, half as big, but it was still really cool. Like it held 10,000 people. And standing behind that arena, waiting for the wrestlers. Back in those days, you'd wait for the wrestlers and get an autograph or something. Terry Funk was going to be feuding with Jerry Lawler. They brought their feud from Memphis to Florida, and they were in one of the matches that night. Of course, I had to be there, and they showed up at the same time. Terry gets out of his truck, Lawler gets out of his car, and they go at it right there because we're all standing there. They didn't plan to show up at the same time, but they did, and they went at it right there. And as kids, you're just like, holy crap, my God, they're fighting already. That's how they protected it back then.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you on that too, because I've always said I understand kayfabe's dead, but I hate it too. Like you just said with Jericho, like he'll be number one heel on Wednesday, and then Saturday he'll be doing a Facebook video thanking the fans and taking questions, and it
right,
does
or have a
suck you out of it.
podcast with the guy. Right, he has a podcast with the people he's feuding with, which I get it. It's all about. I mean, I don't know. I don't think kayfabe has to be dead. You can turn it around, but it would take total commitment. No one's willing to do that.
The only person that's kind of doing it, have you aware of MJF at all?
Yeah, he's great at that. That's all I've ever seen. I've never seen him wrestle, but I see his outside the ring, how he treats people, and that's hilarious. Like,
He keeps it up. If you hear an
an autograph, and he's rude to him, and that great picture of him shooting the 10-year-old the bird, that's hilarious. Even the father complaining. The father complaining, Cody Rhodes went, look, if you're going to meet MJF, you're going to meet MJF.
Yes.
Sorry. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and he does keep it up in interviews and everything. And I think you'd like his in-ring work, too, if you ever check it out. He's very good without overdoing it much, which is really good.
And, I think most wrestling fans actually want that. They want to be convinced. They want to be, I was always a big fan of David Copperfield, but I never once wanted to know how he did his tricks. I like to watch and go, holy crap, how did he do that? I don't want to know, but it was awesome.
I know you're a big fan, too, of Evil Knievel. Tell me a little bit about that love and where that started.
Well, that started in the late 60s. Evil did this famous fountain jump, one of the most famous pieces of footage ever where he crashed jumping over the fountains in front of Caesar's Palace. If you ever see that, look it up. Evil Knievel, Caesar's Palace is a brutal crash where brutal crash. Anyway, it's been shown millions of times. But I heard about him as a kid, like 5 years old. Just fell in love with what he was doing. He was a guy who said he was going to do something and went out there and did it, whether, be damned. If I die, I die. That's his attitude, And then obviously he became super famous in the early 70s and beyond with the toy line. And he was like one of the first people to really market himself to can't even talk, to the degree he did. There was a time in the 70s you could walk in any store and you'd see Evil Knievel in the clothes department, the shoe department. They had posters everywhere, toys everywhere. You go to the model kits, they had models, they had bicycles. And just before you checked out, they had trading cards. I mean, he was everywhere. And I don't know, I just fell in love with it. I think everybody has somebody in their life that clicks with them. And like some people love Elvis, and I love Evil. And I was fortunate enough to become friends with him, which is like, double dose of icing on the cake.
Well, don't bury the lead. You actually became friends with him? You got to know him?
Yeah. in '97, when the internet was just starting to become something, I bought a thing called Web TV, which was the cheapest way to get on the internet back then. You didn't have to buy a computer, which were more expensive back then. They were like $2.99 or something for this Web TV. You hooked it to your television and with a little phone line, and you got on the internet. And I found that he had a website that I didn't even know about because I wasn't on the internet. And they had a fan club. And at that time, back then, I would have done anything to meet Evil Knievel. I wouldn't go across the street to meet the president, but I would have done whatever I could to meet Evil Knievel. And I found out that he lived in Clearwater, right there at a place called Feather Sound. And he had a website, and I called the website number was a guy named Mike Gray. And I said, hey, does Evil ever meet his fans? And he said, yeah, Evil loves to meet his fans. And I told him about this huge collection I had, hence the whore I talked about earlier, that I was married to.
One of my questions. How much of a collection do you have?
Oh, you can go look at my Facebook page and see my Evil albums, and you'll see what I used to have. Most of the big stuff.
I've seen those. That's why I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, most of that stuff's at the Evil Knievel Museum in Kansas now. But anyways, the guy from the website set up a meeting. I told him I was a big fan. I had this huge collection, and he said, "Hey, bring pictures, and people would love to see it." And I met him at a golf course in Clearwater, and I was nervous as heck. I brought a friend with me because you put somebody on a pedestal your whole life, and then you finally get a chance to actually meet him. But the funny thing was, in 1990, I actually met him briefly. His son Robbie came and did a jump at what was called the Soto Speedway at the time, right up the road in Bradenton. And of course, I had to go because I never got a chance to see Evil jump when I was a kid live. So I had to see his kid because it was right up the road. I even missed a booking for that. I was supposed to be in a main event on an indie show, and I was like, hey, man, Robbie Knievel jumping up the road. Well, you got to be here. Not happening, But and before that, Evil would come in like the week before to help promote the jump. And I went there, stand in line with other marks, and got his autograph. And I have this huge poster on my wall as a kid, and I brought that poster for him to sign. And he's like, what's your name? And I went, Bob, just like yours, because his real name's Bob. And he just laughed and signed it to me. And then in '97 is when I actually got to meet him and become friends with him. And did you know that Vince McMahon, Evil did this thing in 1974 at the Snake River Canyon, September 8th, which happens to be my wife's birthday. Thanks for the reminder. But anyways, Vince McMahon helped promote that jump.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, his father had sent him to help promote that jump with the hopes of getting him away from the wrestling business. And I have the book where Vince says, which makes me feel good. He says, of all the people he's met in his life, Evil Knievel was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. But anyway, it's another story.
So you guys actually
meet him. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. So you guys actually became friends. You had a good relationship with him.
Yeah, great relationship. The funny thing is, when we got to the golf course, he was coming over and he's standing by his truck, and I went over, Mr. Knievel? Yeah. He goes, I'm Bob. Mike set up to meet you. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay. He goes, I got to go in here and collect some debts, and I'll meet you down at the bar down the road. There was like this bar, not far from the golf course. And he was going to go in the golf course. He was a gambler. He was basically a golf hustler in his later years. And but we go down to the bar, and we're sitting there, and an hour goes by, and I'm like, oh, my God, the person that I've loved ever since I was a kid blew me off, I'm sitting there. And then he finally walks in. He waves us over, and we sat there for 3 hours. He bought us drinks. He told us stories. It was like one of the best days of my life, just that, And we were talking about the canyon jump, and I just said something off the cuff, like, well, it'd be really cool to see the sky cycle you use, because you use this rocket thing, right? And he goes, oh, well, it's right around here. I keep it at this friend's storage unit. Anytime you're up this way, I'll take you by and see it. And at that time, I was doing a job working for an airport limo, so I was up Tampa all the time. So that was a great excuse. He gave me his number. And he's like, call me next time you're up this way. And literally probably 2 days later, I was like, Mr. Knievel. And he would always say, Bob, call me Evil. But he took us by to see the rock. You can see the pictures on my Facebook page. And our friendship just went from there. I mean, I got to do so many cool things because of him. If you ever watch the A&E biography on Evil, my name's in the credits, because they shot most stuff here as far as the toys they show, the pictures, and a lot of the other stuff that they show in the documentary were shot at my house. And it was great. I mean, the producers were here. They made a huge mess of the house. My wife hated it. But Evil called while they were here, and he's like, everything okay? And the woman's like, yep, we got everything we need here. Well, thanks. But that was a great thing, that he came out with a book in 1999, and he put my picture in it with my son, which is very cool. And he also put my name in the credits next to Muhammad Ali, which is even double cool. But all kinds of cool. I know I'm rambling about it. Once you start talking about Evil Knievel, sometimes I can't shut up.
No, that's pretty fantastic. I mean, there's always that phrase, "Never meet your heroes," but that's always great to hear that you did and actually formed a bond and some great memories.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, literally, like from '97 until he passed away, I actually called him the week before he passed away just to wish him a happy birthday and tell him I loved him. And that was the last time I talked to him. But and how great does it make you feel? I know it sounds corny or sappy, but when I said Evil, I actually told him because I knew he wasn't in very good health. He had this thing called pulmonary fibrosis. He had just had not long before that liver transplant. He was not in good health. And I just told him, I said, Evil, I want to thank you for being you. And you mean the world to me. And I love you. And he goes, I love you too, Bob. And that, you don't know what that means to hear that from someone that you put on a pedestal more than some people put God. And that's that's maybe an exaggeration, but not really.
Not far from it if it is.
Not really. I mean, probably not. So some evil obsession, you might call it. But, again, so many great things that we got to do with him. He had me and a friend take the actual rocket he used for the canyon jump, the bike he used for the shark jump in '77, and this awesome life-size statue, all of which are in the museum now. But in '99, we took him out to the Snake River Canyon for him to set him up at the mall, and he flew in and did an autograph signing because it was the 25th anniversary of the jump. And I know you don't know much about that jump, but that was one of the biggest events in the 1970s. You do like 50,000 people to the edge of a canyon in an obscure town called Twin Falls, Idaho. And $25 a head, and people paid, millions of dollars all the way across the country to watch it on closed circuit TV, which is where Vince McMahon came in. But
okay.
To be able to take all that stuff to the canyon, and then we got to go out to where the jump was, and the big dirt mound that he built, like a 100-foot high dirt mound, and with the big cement slabs, and then it also had another 100-foot ramp for the jump, but the dirt mound and the other stuff was still there. So we got to go out there and see that stuff, and I literally cried. I had tears in my eyes because if you're an Evil fan, that's like holy ground, because that was like his most famous stunt. But we got to take all that stuff out there, man. It was just so much fun. And I can remember the silly things. Like he used to call like 4 a.m, 2 a.m, and he would always say, Bob, Evil, what are you doing? You just tell him, watching TV because he knew I stayed up late. And every time I would call him, I said, I'm not bothering you. And he would go, Bob, you couldn't bother me if you wanted to. You can call me anytime you want. If my phone's off, that means I'm sleeping. Otherwise, I answer, So that just was so much, those little things you miss. Just an obscure phone call for no reason,
Absolutely, I think that's pretty awesome to hear. One other thing too, I heard. Did you say his son's name was Robbie?
Yeah, Robbie Knievel.
Isn't your son's name Robbie?
Yeah, that's not because of that. My dad's name.
No, okay.
My dad's name was Robert Cook, and my name's Robert Cook, and my kid's name was Robert Cook too, but he just calls himself Robbie.
Okay, I thought maybe you went that far into it.
Oh, that's more coincidental. But that was, I mean, I can go on, but just knowing Evil was one of my greatest accomplishments, even though it was all basically pure luck. And the fact that he, for whatever reason, I always thought the reason he connected with me is because after I'd met him, I'd show up at places. Like anytime he was doing an autograph signing locally, he would call me and say, Bob, I'm going to be at the Harley dealership in Clearwater, Fletcher's Harley. I want you to come by. So he'd go out and hang out with him while he's doing all that stuff. And everybody wanted something from him. But I always thought the reason he liked me is because from the very first day, I never wanted anything from him. I just wanted to hear his stories. I wanted to, it was just cool to be there, in my world, in presence of greatness. And I always thought that's maybe why he liked me so much, or whatever the reason. I don't know.
No, absolutely. I can see that. He just, enjoyed it. Like you said, he didn't want anything. He just simply wanted to be around him, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, like I used to just make excuses. I just call him for no reason, just like, try to find excuses to call him. And one time he did a commercial for ESPN for this Winter X Games, they were called. This back in I think '99 or 2000, whatever. and he had left some clothes that he had worn in the commercial back in Denver, wherever they shot it, and the clothes were going to be delivered to the Tampa airport, and he knew I did the airport stuff, and he asked if I'd pick it up for him and bring it to his house or his condo, which obviously I said, no, what, are you crazy? No, I'm just kidding. But and at that same time, he was trying to accumulate a lot of his memorabilia because he was kind of like Elvis in his day. When he would do a jump, he'd give the guy's, the promoter's son his helmet. He'd give the promoter's wife his leathers. He'd give the motorcycle to somebody else, And so he was trying to reaccumulate all this stuff, including the toys collections that were made. And I had a whole bunch of that stuff, mint in the package. And I come to his house after picking his stuff up at the airport, and I got a handful of, I got the box of stuff, and then I got like a bunch of toys on top of it. And I go in his room, and he goes, oh, you brought me some stuff to sign. And I said, no, I brought you this stuff for what you're looking for, build your collection. And he just stopped, shook my hand and said, man, I really appreciate that. Because, most people would just think you're there to use him or something. I don't know. And then he gave me $100 and told me to take my wife and family out for dinner. And I don't think I ever did, but I appreciated the $100.
Well, you still got the 100, which is what counts.
But that's what he gave me the 100. I said, you don't got to pay me, Evil. And he goes, no, take your wife and family out for dinner. I said, oh, thank you. Don't turn down money.
I heard that. I was told that a long time ago, actually. Don't turn down money. It's good advice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm rambling about him, but man, I could go on. So many great things that I got to do because of him, and just even little things were fun. He did an autograph signing over there in Brandon at the Harley dealership, and my wife and I went there. And every time he would do the signing, he'd have the rocket from McKinnon up on display in his bikes, and, just to draw attention. And we walked in the dealership, and I was getting to walk by the office where he was in, and I go in the bathroom, and he yells at me, he goes, Bob, get your ass in here. And I go in the office, and he's just casual conversation. He's like taking these pills. He goes, this is so my liver doesn't reject my body. This is so I don't kill my wife. This is so, just fun little things. And then he started yelling at some woman who was on his motorcycle. He's like, hey, get that bitch off my motorcycle. Because he'd have everything on display. He'd have these, what do you call those? These things around it so people don't cross over to the display and sit on stuff.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, not really barricades, but just kind of like the things they have at movie theaters, whatever. I don't know. But it was just little things like that was so much fun.
Do you keep in touch with his son at all?
No. I met him. They had the Evil Knievel Museum grand opening in 2017, and my friend Darlene and I went to it because I was invited, and because the guy who started the museum is the guy who bought my collection, and we're friends for the last 10 years now. And Robbie was supposed to sit at our table, but he didn't. But we got to meet him and hang out with him a bit. He was a really funny guy, even though he was in a lot of pain because he just had back surgery. And he was on painkillers, and he might have been drinking a little. I don't know. But he was a really funny guy. And but no, I don't. He probably wouldn't even remember meeting me. But it was cool though because Darlene and I got to sit with Evil's daughter, Tracy, and Darlene's talking her ear off, and they put me over. The guy did a speech. And they go, we got someone here who wrestled the legendary Ric Flair. Bob Cook is here. And I had to stand up. So it was just a really fun time. That museum was amazing. If you're an Evil fan, it's a must. And if you're not, you'll become one if you go to it.
What was it like returning to the Armory in Tampa recently, a couple years back?
Oh, that was fun. I never worked there before.
Oh, okay.
I'd only gone there as a kid. Or, I probably wasn't even really, I was like a young adult, if you want to call it that, 19, 18, 20. It was fun. It wasn't quite the same, obviously, because it's not set up the same. But, I had the Great Malenko's last match. Me and Penelope Paradise, I don't know if you know who she is, but when I was the Masked Superstar for Suncoast, Malenko had his last match, and it was me and Penelope against him and Frank Reyes. I'm sure you know who Frank is.
Oh, of course.
But we had his last match at the Bradenton or Palmetto Civic Center, which is coincidentally enough where they had that beach blast for UWF.
Oh, okay.
But that was where Malenko had his last match, and it just turned out that Joe Malenko last match was at that Armory show, and I was his partner. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. You're the bookend of a couple of them. That's pretty cool.
Even though that match that Joe and I had was the shits, it was still fun to be part of that. And that whole event was good. I don't know if you were there. Were you there?
No, unfortunately, I didn't see that one, but it definitely looks like that was a fun event to if anyone that was there for sure.
Yeah, they had a good crowd, and all the legends were there: Bushwhacker and Bugsy McGraw and a bunch of guys, Joel Deaton, all kinds of Cuban Assassin, Jerry Briscoe, Brian Blair.
Absolutely, no, the good card and good amount of legends there too. You do the not the fan fest, but the legends luncheons as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors. Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, how are those, man? I've always been meaning to attend one because that just seems like a great time to just kind of sit and listen.
It is. It's a blast. I mean, lots of the famous guys from Florida that are still alive. Buddy Colt, and Jerry Briscoe, and Steve Kern, Bugsy McGraw, the Cuban Assassin, Ricky Santana, Haku, Ted DiBiase, Greg Valentine, Danny Spivey. I'm just trying to think. Brian Blair, he's the host, and a bunch of other guys come to each one, and it's just fun. We always honor two people at each lunch and give them a nice plaque, and they get their meal paid for. And then Brian had this really big plaque made, and everybody who's been honored gets their name on the plaque. And once it's full, it's going to be on display at the Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, I believe, which is really cool. And guess whose name's right in the middle at the top?
I'm gonna guess Bob Cook.
Bingo. So that's really cool. You know, the next one is June 26th, unless we're going to reschedule it. It was supposed to be in the May, but obviously this coronavirus screwed everything up.
Yeah.
I don't know if restaurants are allowed to be full capacity yet because we always get a full house at that place.
Yeah, as I say, does it look like June 26th is happening still, as far as you know?
I got to get with Brian Blair because he's the guy who calls the shots. I just go with him or agree with him, or it's his deal. You know what? Where that what's the word? Where that came from was when Gordon Solie and Hiro Matsuda became ill. They both had cancer. Brian Blair, Mike Graham, Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, Bugsy McGraw, and others started the Legends lunches. They called them Legends. Originally, they were just a lunch get together to cheer up Hiro and Gordon, and then they just kind of grew. And 20 years later, we're still doing it.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really cool origin of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not it's not formal or it's informal, whatever the word is. You don't got to dress up. Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
All it costs is whatever you buy because it is a restaurant. It's a friend of Brian's. Well, it's a pub, but it's so you got to pay for your food unless you're being honored. Then you get free meal. But it is fun. You get you go up there, you introduce a person, it's almost like a Hall of Fame. You tell a story of who you had someone induct him or introduce him, whatever, and he tells stories. And it's just fun. You have a chance to go up and say something about whoever's being honored if you want. There's all kinds of it's just a fun time. We've had all kinds of crazy things going on. Nasty Boy Knobs has been there before, and he's nuts.
I would imagine.
Bill Alfonso comes to all of them. Eddie Mansfield, who's been in the news lately.
Oh, yeah.
That Dark Side of the Ring. But I've known Eddie for 30 years. He's a great guy. I don't care what anybody says. He's actually helping me and Darlene get in a movie, of all things.
Oh, yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that if you can.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. It's a movie called Allure. And there's actually supposed to be 3 according to the, what do you call that, letter of intent that we signed. But we're going to play truck drivers. And guess who else is in the movie? Haku and Stan Hansen, of all people.
Okay, so whoever's making this must be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I don't know, but Eddie Mansfield's the one that got it for us. I mean, whether it ever happens or not, I don't know. I talked to the producer or whoever's involved with it. She just right now everything's up in the air, obviously, because of all this. You're not knowing when you can do anything, but if it works out, it's going to be good. I mean, it's a nice payday. We're going to be there. She said our stuff would be, probably a week's worth of stuff. And you get a nice payday each day, plus, hotel and airfare. And my philosophy is if I suck, they can cut me out. But as long as they pay me, I'm all right.
Yeah, that pay doesn't go away. They can't cut the payout.
But I was just using that as just to say how great of a guy Eddie is. He's been a friend for a long time. And even if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. It's just that,
the intent, was right.
No matter what, don't listen to what they say on, what is it, Dark Side of the Ring and all that crap.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, everyone has different, views for sure. Like you said, you have a more personal view. You actually know the guy.
That's the thing. Most people who have a view of somebody, it's based on what they think they heard or what they heard and how they decide to perceive it. Like there's a lot of people who don't like Hulk Hogan, but I know, Brian Blair is one of his best friends, and they love Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
I had never met Hulk Hogan, and it pisses me off because I've always been a fan. Although Brian said he's going to take me to meet him sometime, I haven't bothered him about it. But most of the time, when somebody dislikes someone like that, it's based on jealousy. It's based on, you're an old bitter wrestler who spent all your money or didn't make as much as you thought you should have, and you blame him as opposed to look in the mirror and blame yourself. Like I had 4 chances in WCW to do more than I did. Guess who blew it? I did. I take full responsibility.
Why would you say that is?
I would say I'm an idiot, first of all, but Dusty Rhodes gave me 4 chances to do something. I was going to team with Tom Pritchard. I blew that one because every time he would tell me he was going to do something, and this was just before Tom went to team with Jimmy Backlund as the Heavenly Bodies. Dusty calls me in the hallway once at Center State. He goes, "Bob, how'd you like to make more money and work full time?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." He goes, "Well, I'm thinking about teaming you up with Tom Pritchard. You know who he is?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, sure. He's great work." He goes, "Okay, but I want you to get in a little better shape." Guess what happened? I went to the bar that night. I drank, and then I didn't quit drinking Mountain Dew, and then I didn't quit eating too much, and then that opportunity went away.
I feel the Mountain Dew problem
Yeah, I'm
wholeheartedly.
drinking a Mountain Dew right now.
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying not to, but
Yeah,
I'm
and then
thinking about it.
I was going to be part of a tag team called the State Patrol with Buddy Lee Parker, which they already had, but the other guy had left for whatever reason. They're going to do that, but it was back to that. I want you to get in better shape. Didn't happen. And then they were going to team me and a guy named Joe Cruz and make us the new Assassins. And we were going to be managed by the original Assassin, who was Jody Hamilton. And we even went to the power plant and trained with DDP and Jody. Jody's showing us like tag team psychology and different things, but it always boiled down to I got to get in better shape, and I didn't do it, so I blew it. I'm an idiot. I always wondered maybe it was I was afraid to succeed, or I was content with my spot. I liked being where I was. There wasn't a lot of pressure being a loser. All you had to do was lose.
You still had a lot of great memories, though. I mean, you don't regret any of it, do you?
No, not at all. And I'm not bitter in the least. Anybody who would listen to this or see something I post on Facebook or anywhere deem me as bitter. And I've had people say that before. Like if you criticize anybody today, instantly you're just a bitter old vet or a bitter nobody.
Yeah.
That's the lead. I'm not bitter at all. I loved my time in wrestling, and I know my spot. I know I wasn't a superstar, but I got to work with some of my heroes. I got to work with some of the best wrestlers in history, and I have no regrets at all. Maybe I regret meeting my wife, but other than that, I have no regret. And I would do it all again, just the way it was, being a loser.
And maybe avoiding the wife. Is that it?
Yeah, well, I do have my kid, and I got a grandkid, and all that.
There you go. Silver lining.
Yeah, but in reality, when you're doing TV for WCW, well, we didn't make a lot of money, but we made enough to get by. But if it wasn't for my wife at that time, who had a good job all those years, I wouldn't have been able to do that on what we made. She allowed me to pretend to be a successful wrestler, even though it was nothing even close to that. I considered I just had a blast. I think I posted recently where you see so much drama in wrestling, and when I was in wrestling, I used wrestling to get away from the real life drama. As soon as I got in my car and shut the door, I was no longer married. I was no longer a father. I didn't have bills to pay. I didn't have any problems. My only concern was having fun and getting to the show. And we didn't have cell phones back then either, so they couldn't call us every 5 seconds.
Yeah, you actually got away for once.
Right.
No, but amen to the having fun. I think in general we need to stick to that as a whole. This should be about putting on the best show and just having fun.
Yeah, it seems like too many people overthink everything. They just micromanage. Not even. I mean, obviously they do that in the WWE, but even independent shows I go to, there's just so much involved. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. I never ran a show, so I can't say if they're doing anything right or wrong. I just don't see people having the fun that we had. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't. It doesn't seem that way to me. A friend of mine named Rick Ryder, who's actually the person I had the most fun ever working with, because we worked independent shows all over Florida for 10 years. He's somebody who I trained back in '85. And we were in the main event, semi-main events, and every kind of match you can think of, cage, bloodbath, whatever. He asked me to put together a show for him back in 2010, I think it was, right down here, right down the road from us. And I said, hey, Rick, do you care? And I hadn't been wrestling for a long time at that point. I said, Rick, do you care if I wrestle on the show? And he goes, I don't care. So what I did is I booked the show as like a reunion of friends. I booked Brian Blair, Jerry Gray, and Bugsy McGraw against me, Michael Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
You know Michael Patrick, right?
Of course, yeah.
And my friend Robert, who bought my house. And we went down to that show, and I booked the whole show. I mean, I had my son against somebody, and we even had Seth Petroselli, is his name, I think, from UFC. He was there. We're at the end of the show, like my friend Robert got into a fight with him. I had a real fight with this thing, but it was good stuff. But I get to the show, and I'm basically the guy running the show because I booked it, right? And I told everybody to have fun, right? I came in the dressing room where the people were, and I said, hey, I appreciate you all being here. Have fun. Don't get hurt. Bye. And I went in the other room and sat down and talked to Bugsy McGraw. That was my extent of running the show. But then there was these two guys, I think this guy named Maxwell and Anthony Devlin, maybe?
That's a name, sure.
There's a guy named Maxwell. He used to wear like a tuxedo or something.
Chicago, Maxwell Chicago?
Right. I think it was him against this guy, Devlin. And the one would come in the dressing room where I was and go, oh, Tony doesn't want to lose. And the other one would come in and say, oh, he won't let me win. And I was like, what the fuck, guys? Go have fun. Shut up. I mean, I didn't even, it's just silliness. Especially if you're running one show. If you're running a show if you're going to do a show every week, it makes more sense to maybe micromanage to a point where you want to draw the crowd in to come back the next week. But this is one show. One show, and it hasn't taken place in 10 years since. So it doesn't matter who wins or loses other than letting the baby faces win the main event. Everything else is whatever. You want to let the baby faces win the main event because you want people to go home happy.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was just, I'm being reunited with, like, I ain't seen Jerry in years. I hadn't seen Bugsy in 20 years. I hadn't seen Brian in years. So for me, it was just a reunion. And of course, after the show, we had a party at my house with Bugsy and a bunch of the guys, and that was, even funner than the show. Frankie Reyes was the referee. Or maybe Adam was the referee. I don't know. I have to go back and watch the video.
Is the video out there?
Yeah, it's on YouTube somewhere.
Because now I want to know who won between Chicago and Devlin.
Well, I don't know where the whole show is. Like, the reason the video is on, I think, is my friend taped it, Robert, who was in the match, and he just uploaded our match.
Oh, okay.
And my kid's match is online too with the guy he worked with. But that was just a fun night. It rained that night, and my neighbors were all there. Because back in those days, everybody knew that I used to be a wrestler, and our neighborhood was much more friendly than it is now.
Was this in Venice, or where was this?
It was in Punta Gorda at a place called the Memorial Auditorium. This was in 2010.
Damn. Yeah. I'm only an hour from there, man. I didn't know about this show.
Well, this was like 2010. The funny thing was, we used to do shows there a lot. Like every year we do a show there back in the 90s and the 80s, and Florida Championship Wrestling or Championship Wrestling from Florida used to do those shows there in the 70s and 80s. But then in 2004, when that hurricane came through, Hurricane Charlie, I think it was, destroyed the original building, and then they rebuilt it. That's where we did the show. But again, that was just
his bar, Celtic Ray in Punta Gorda too. Yeah.
Right. That was just a fun show, and again, it was the only show I've ever actually ran, if you want to call it running a show, where you just walk in the dressing room. Hey, thanks for coming. Don't get hurt. Bye. Have fun. And it was, that was the extent of the thought process. I saw your interview with Ron Neiman. I appreciated Ron putting me over. I sent him a message and he's right. I am a pussy or a weirdo and didn't like to fly.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, because you mentioned somebody didn't like to put me in the category as a jobber, which made me feel good because I hate that word anyways. I hate the word jobber and enhancement talent. Despise those words.
Well, what would you call it? Just talent, just worker?
Yeah, I would call it. Are you sitting down?
Sure.
I would call it being a pro wrestler.
There you go. It makes sense to me.
Right. We trained at the pro wrestling school to be a pro wrestler. We traveled the same roads as the
Hmm.
superstar, stayed in the same hotels, slept with some of the same whores, and did the same exact thing, just on a lower scale as far as the pay goes.
So we mentioned obviously, wrestling's at a weird spot right now. Not much is happening. Things are starting to trickle a little bit here in Florida. When we're back, are we going to see Bob Cook back in the ring anytime soon?
I was supposed to wrestle May 5th, no, May 2nd in Miami or Fort Lauderdale for Pablo Mark.
Oh, CCW.
Yeah, was supposed to wrestle for him and me and him and him and a guy named Joe Sarancino, who's a good friend of mine, who's started training when he was like 60 years old.
Yeah, he's that guy, right?
Well, he was and he was in that battle royal we were talking about at the Fighting for Cure.
There you go. That's right.
We
Okay.
be, yeah, we became really close friends because he originally lived 2 miles from me when he started training to be a wrestler, and I sent him a message on Facebook like, "Hey, I only live a couple miles from you. You want to start working out together? Because I have a home gym, and I always have a hard time sticking with working out. So if you can find someone that would work out with you, it's always better." And yeah, we've become really good friends. We work out together 6 days a week now.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've ever lifted a weight. I'm just saying we do it.
You're doing something. That's what counts.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's like a waste of time. But for some reason in my mind, if I quit working out, I feel like I've completely given up, and I'm not ready to give up yet. And it has nothing to do with wrestling. It has to do with just a mental thing.
Oh, that's good. I mean, well, one way or the other, though, I think that's good to hear.
But we're supposed to do something with Pablo once everything clears up and they can have people there again. I don't know if we will or not. But like I said, the last match I had was back in August, Dory Funk Jr. show, and that was a lot of fun. Mick Foley was there, and the Barbarian, which is really, I hadn't seen the Barbarian in a long time, and he remembered me. That kind of stuff
Mhm.
means a lot to you, right? He like comes up and gives
Sure.
me a hug. Bob, it's great to see you back in the ring, brother. It's like, wow, I ain't seen you in 20 years, and you remember me? And he was one of those guys that a lot of people would be intimidated by back in the day.
Sure.
He was light as a feather, though. Everybody nowadays likes to be stiff. And, if guys would stop trying to convince themselves it's real and try and more to convince the audience it's real, they wouldn't be hurt as much, and it'd be a heck of a lot better product overall.
I can see that. That kind of brings me to one of the final questions here. A little kid approaches you after a show and he says, "Mr. Cook, I want to be a pro wrestler. What advice do you give him?"
Honestly, I
Sure.
would say
Yes.
forget it. Especially nowadays, I think it's easier than ever to get in wrestling now, but harder than ever to make anything of yourself.
Mm,
Because there's so much out there, and there's so many people vying for that spot. And what do you even consider making it? I'm the top guy in the indie circuit. I mean, are you really making it? I don't know. Maybe I'd be nice though and try to encourage them because it's kind of. I could think back in my day when I went to the counselor's office in school in 1978, and my parents are there, and the counselor asked. They said, we want to ask Bob what he wants to do with his life, so we can try to put him in a class that would, help him reach his goals. And I told the counselor I want to be a pro wrestler, and he laughed and said, he's telling a 15-year-old kid. Well, he actually told me, "You're too small, and you have to know somebody to be in that business." And I'm just like, well, I didn't think anything of it at that time, other than what kind of a counselor dashes the dream of a 15-year-old kid.
mm.
So maybe I would be nice to the kid and just try to point him in the right direction. I'd probably just give him advice, though. Don't do what I did because
Where do you see? I'm sorry, yes.
Well, I was just going to say because I did everything wrong when it comes to what you're supposed to do outside of the ring. I thought I was okay in the ring, but all the things it takes. I mean, there's more to it. You go in the ring for 15 minutes, but everything you should do to get to that 15 minutes is more important than anything else you actually do. But because nowadays more than ever, I mean, being in shape and everything, that was my biggest problem, is looking like I was in shape or getting in shape. Even though I could work without blowing up back and then because you just did it so much. But you have to you have to put the work in outside to get the rewards inside. That's what I would say. And I never did, which is why I'm talking to you, and I'm a loser.
What are you saying? You would have
I
done the
had
show?
I had opportunities to go to Japan and stuff, but I never had besides the flight over there, which was like what 18 hours or something. I never had enough confidence in myself to go to Japan. I mean, when Terry Funk and Dory Funk tell you in 1987, Bob, we can get you in Japan, you want to go, and you're like, oh, I don't want to, you know. When Malenko tells you, you know, in 1992, hey, I want to go take you to Japan, you want to go? No, I don't want to. You know, I mean, that's an epic fail right there. But that all stems from uh, low self-esteem, you know, no self-confidence.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, I don't know. What kind of wood would a coffin be? Let's see. I don't know.
Mahogany.
No. Yeah, I don't really know. Probably doing the same thing I am now, just posting stupid shit on Facebook and drinking too much Mountain Dew and telling everybody I'm going to work out and get in shape. If I'm lucky enough to even live 5 more years.
Do you don't say that. Do you ever mess with a Code Red Mountain Dew?
No, see, I believe that anything other than the original true Mountain Dew is a bastardization of the legendary drink known as Mountain Dew. It is the lime piss colored Mountain Dew that tastes so refreshing and delicious and burns your throat on the way down, especially when it's ice cold. Anything else is uncivilized.
Okay, remind me not to drink any Code Red in front of you. I do like the original Dew the best, but I do
Exactly.
dip into Code Red here and there.
I can't do it. I feel like it's backstabbing my best friend. I'm not willing to do that. I don't think they should be allowed to call it Mountain Dew. Mountain
Blasphemy.
Dew is, yeah, right. Mountain Dew is Mountain Dew. The green colored can, which I'm looking at right now, the MTN. Wait, yeah, MTN, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's no longer Mountain Dew. It's Mountain Dew. Moochin.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish I could quit drinking Mountain Dew. You know, in the '80s, early '80s, I was addicted to Mellow Yellow, which is weird when you think about it.
What stopped you?
They used to have those commercials, Mountain or Mellow Yellow, the fastest soft drink in the world, and they would have like these contests where you guzzle a bottle of Mellow Yellow in 10 seconds. But for some reason, I switched to Mountain Dew. I don't remember when, but it's been many, many years. I'm sure
Did
my
you
kidneys and my liver and everything else is
did you
my
ever
gallbladder.
try did you ever
Yeah, my
try Vault
gallbladder.
from Coke?
Pardon?
Ever try Vault from Coke?
Probably years ago. I can't remember. I mean, I remember hearing about it. Wasn't it supposed to be loaded with caffeine?
I think so. I mean, it was like their version of Mountain Dew. It's no longer around though. It's out of
Oh,
print.
yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, I've always been a Mountain Dew. Well, not always, obviously, but at least the last 40 years, close to it.
Do you
And
ever
that's
go to
not a good thing. Like I said, my liver and my kidneys probably hate it. My gallbladder gave up and had to be taken out 20 years ago.
do you ever go dip down in like Winn Dixie and try like Mountain Mist?
No, 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 no. I'd rather do the real stuff. And then people say, have you tried my Diet Mountain Dew? And I say, yeah. And all that does is make me want real Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I can't do it. I don't hate all diet sodas. Like, I actually don't mind a diet Coke, but like, yeah, Diet Mountain Dew just doesn't taste good.
Yeah, they got this new Mountain Dew Zero, and I thought, oh, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot because I would love to have something that tastes exactly like Mountain Dew that doesn't have,
Does
you know,
better, sure.
thousands of calories. I say thousands of calories based on how many I drink every day. But yeah, and I tried the Mountain Dew Zero. It's not horrible, but it's not Mountain Dew. But I have been cutting back lately.
That's good. Same here. That's why I don't have it right now at 1 a.m. because I'm trying to cut back.
Yeah, well, this is when you know, I after I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go make Jerry Lawler in 2K20, and I got to have a Mountain Dew. I'm creating the king. You know, you got to have a Mountain Dew in between placing the crown and the scepter.
What are you playing 2K20 on?
Xbox One.
There you go. All right. Same here. Same here.
Yeah, I don't play online though because, well, I don't.
I don't
I
do
actually
much of online.
I just got the game yesterday. I mean, I've read all the bad things about it, and so I didn't buy it. And then I got it for a good price. My kid works at Walmart, so I ran into him yesterday. I was like, "Hey, give me your discount card so I can go buy the game." And so I went and bought it. I actually
It,
like it.
It's definitely. I mean, they fixed a lot of the bugs, and it's definitely worth it now. For like, it wasn't worth it brand new for $60, but now it's worth it. I definitely say it's worth it now.
Yeah, I spent the extra 10 so I could get the Hulk and China and Mankind and The Rock. But I love the Hulk Hogan entrance thing. I had to fix it though because they were too lazy to do it right. Idiots.
What's wrong with it?
Well, he should have sunglasses on and his
Oh, okay.
weightlifting. It's Hulkamania. So I fixed it.
Ah, fantastic. You know what you got to do there. Did you ever make yourself yet?
No, I just got the game last night. I've made myself in every other game I've had over the years, but
Do you
so
win
far,
in the video game?
hmm?
Do you win in the video game?
Well, sometimes I have to. No, but uh, earlier today I spent probably 2 hours lifting up or uploading Terry Funk T-shirts to my accounts so I can make Terry Funk better. Somebody
Just
made a really good Terry Funk, but the T-shirt he made looks like crap. So I
okay, I was gonna
uploaded a bunch
say,
of
yeah.
different.
Look online. Sometimes people. That's what I do. I don't have the patience to make them anymore, but I download other people's.
Yeah, and then I just go in and tweak them. Like the guy's T-shirt wasn't any good, so I uploaded a bunch of Terry Funk T-shirts.
Forever. Uh, any plugs? Anywhere can anyone reach you? You taking any bookings?
Who would book me? Well,
Okay.
who's even running shows? I mean,
IPW Nemi's running, and you can work with Superhuman.
oh, no, I don't think Ron will use me again. The last couple of times I was booked on Ron shows, I came up with excuses not to show up. They were legitimate excuses, but I don't even want to bother him with it now.
Any other parting words for the wonderful men and women at home listening?
Well, I would say to the wrestling fans, most of you I find to be overbearing, obnoxious, pig-faced bastards, miscreants to the core. And if I had a full stomach right now thinking of you completely, I'd be throwing up. But fortunately, I'm just drinking Mountain Dew. And to stop bitching and moaning, stop thinking wrestling owes you anything except for 2 hours or 3 hours of entertainment, and enjoy what you enjoy until you take that last breath into the old sucking lung bags.
I love it. Maybe
Quit
my favorite parting
bitching
words
and
we've had on the show yet.
let's say quit bitching and moaning about everything, and I mean everything. Here's the reality of life. You want to know the reality of life?
Absolutely.
There's good white people and there's bad white people. There's good black people and there's bad black people. There's good cops, bad cops. Get over it.
I said that the other day. I said there's good cops, bad cops, just like there's good gardeners, bad gardeners, good cashiers, bad cashiers. It's all across the
Right.
board.
Joe Malenko's a cop in Tampa. Fortunately, he recently had some surgery on his elbow, so he's been on leave and hasn't had to deal with all this crap.
Great. It's a crazy time, both in and outside of the world of wrestling. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you would think people would be able to just enjoy wrestling to forget about all the real bad things going on, but all they do is bitch and moan.
Yeah, I've always said, man, I'm actually glad that they've been able to still run because it does give us more entertainment, more escapism.
Yeah, I mean, they could have just shut it down and
Yeah.
people would have bitched about that. I mean, I
Hmm.
think they're all doing the best they can. The one thing I know you want to go, but
No rush.
the one thing that people should realize, and a lot of people don't, and that includes guys like Jim Cornette and whoever who rag on everything today, is that most of the people in the wrestling business love what they do. They have a passion for it. It's in their heart. It's in their blood. And at the end of the day, they're doing the best they can with what they have to work with. And you should appreciate the effort, not criticize the result. That's all I think you should do.
No, I like that very much.
Because I mean, you see, like even though I've never liked everything they do in wrestling. Wrestling's always had good stuff, bad stuff, great stuff, sad stuff. Every era, no matter what, had bad stuff. You can go back to the Attitude Era and go, oh man, it was so good. Well, they had a character called the Oddities, which was an embarrassment to the entire business with the Insane Clown Posse and other people. Absolute embarrassment. So
Yeah,
every era had stupid crap.
absolutely.
You know, I've tried to stop criticizing so much. Once in a while I do just because if something's really bad, you got to say something, right? Because people they'll say you're an old bitter vet, which is the absolute least of what I am. Old, yes. Vet, yes, sort of, I guess. But bitter, not even a little bit. So I try
Absolutely
to
not.
and try to stick up for people. Like people were talking about Nia Jax hurting that Carrie Sane the other day. It wasn't her fault. Did you see that video?
I know people were talking about it. I almost didn't see it just because half the time, like you said, it's not their fault.
It wasn't. It was, and I'm no fan of Nia Jax. I mean, when you see that one video where she threw her down and hit her head on the turnbuckle, that was Nia's fault because she was in control and she didn't do it right. But this incident was not her fault at all. It was that Kairi Sane's fault for not putting her hands up. When you get thrown into a steps, you have two choices: protect yourself or don't. And if you don't, you're going to happen. What happened to her is going to happen. It had nothing to do with Nia. She didn't throw her. She had like 6 feet before she hit the steps. She could have controlled it. But because Nia has a bad reputation, you'll just see a headline: Nia Jax injured another person, and people instantly jump on her.
Yeah, they jump on the bandwagon, and I bet you there's others that haven't even seen the clip either that just jump on the bandwagon, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I was one at first, but then I thought, wait, I'm going to wait and see if, if they show it, see it. And I saw it, and I don't think it was her fault at all. And I don't think she should have a job. So, because I think she's useless, but it wasn't her fault in this instance. But because I'm a morbidly obese man, I hate fat people. And I don't believe they should be on a television show taking up space for people who aren't fat. Especially, I like my divas to be in really good shape anyway. If I don't want to have sex with a diva, I don't want to see them, okay?
Well, from one fat guy, I'm glad you joined me on this show, though.
No, I'm just kidding, but I just try not to criticize as much as I used to, because again, it makes you just look bitter, and I'm not bitter at all. Besides, there's enough negativity going on. Why criticize every little aspect of a silly thing like wrestling?
Yeah, just enjoy. I'll sometimes I'll say my criticisms, but it's never really in a hateful, like get it off my TV kind of way. Because hey, I'm still watching, obviously, and that's the funny part too. Is most people will criticize and then tune right back in. Well, if you hate it, don't watch it.
Yeah, and I don't watch it anymore. I mean, I haven't watched the shows since WrestleMania, not this year, but last year. I quit watching Raw and SmackDown and the weekly shows. I'll just skim YouTube and see their channel and just see what the highlights are. If it's something I want to see, I'll look. But I don't watch the whole show anymore. And it's not so much, I don't know, we talk about this or is this from the other podcast?
But You're getting your interviews mixed up here. No, I don't think we have.
I don't know if I already talked. I know I talked about this before. I don't know if it was on this show. But I'm not into the characters now. That's basically what I'm saying. I quit watching not because I think it's crap or anything. I just can't. I'm not interested in any of the characters.
Does anyone suck you in? Is there anyone you are a fan of, though?
Well, when I watch it, I like that Velveteen Dream Kid. I think he could be a huge star as long as he's not really like hitting on underage girls.
Yeah, hopefully that wasn't true.
Yeah, I mean, who knows in this era? I think you're really. I don't know if there's a mental problem if you're doing that in this era, or if you're just stupid because you're going to get caught. So you got to think he's either stupid or it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean that's part of my reasoning too. Is that I mean this sounds horrible because if it is true, then hopefully yes he gets prosecuted 100%. But I can't believe he would be that dumb the way he went about it if it was true.
Yeah, I mean you can't think, okay, I'm famous now and I'm gonna like hit on an underage girl where they can actually record it, and show proof of it. Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. I mean, he's got to either be delusional or it just didn't happen. Right. You haven't heard anything about it since, so I doubt it even happened.
And he's going for a title on Sunday, so yeah, I mean, so far there's definitely no problem.
But you remember that stuff with Enzo or whatever? All that turned out to be baloney, anyways.
Yeah, very much so. And even then, when you track it back, the way she wrote it, you could kind of pin a lot of holes in it.
Well, I've had my times doing things I shouldn't have, like that. But it was, sometimes it's like I met a girl in Atlanta once who said she was a certain age, turned out she wasn't. And I say, what am I supposed to do? Check her ID? It's not my fault. A whore is a whore is a whore.
I believe Gandhi said that once.
Yeah. Yeah. Bathe her and bring her to me. A whore is a whore is a whore.
Oh, we got to end on a different note.
But yeah, all kinds of debauchery went on in Atlanta, though. So, hey, I wasn't the only one. Come on.
Yeah. Well, any names you want to say?
Well, I was there the night where Sid and Brian Pillman got into their big squeegee incident. I was in Atlanta one night when all the wrestlers got into a fight with a bunch of firemen. And I can remember I was in this hotel room with this girl I was talking about, and for some reason she had her clothes off. I don't know how that happened, but and I heard a commotion outside the door, and I opened the door and I look out. Mike Graham is standing in the hallway in his underwear, wearing a pair of cowboy boots, and he's yelling at a cop. They started it, we finished it. God damn it, blah blah blah. And this girl, she's like peeking out the door, and she's naked. I'm like, get back inside there. What are you doing? But to see Mike Graham in his underwear and a pair of cowboy boots yelling at a cop, imagine having a cell phones now. It would be like multi-million hits on YouTube. It was so classic.
That is true. If only there was phone cameras back in the day, yes.
Well, no, really. If there was, we'd all been in jail.
Maybe that's why the new scene has calmed down a lot, because he doesn't get caught too easily.
That's true. I mean, I've heard lots of stories about certain people I won't mention because I don't want to get in a lawsuit or something, where they left members of the opposite sex in such disarray. There were literally chunks of hair pulled from their heads, stuck in certain places. All I could say is, oh, what a rush.
But thankfully you didn't name any names, so we'll never know.
That's right. Talking about the band, Rush.
It's
I was a roadie for Rush back in the 70s.
Really now?
Yeah, I was only 14 years old. It was weird, but the groupies were fun.
I'm sure there's some stories from that time too.
But man, back in those days, like I used to travel with Chris Champion, and he was known for being a playboy, if you will, and a lot of things went on.
Well, we might have to have you back on here for part 2 then.
Oh, hey, anytime. I don't have a life. Sitting here with a Mountain Dew, getting ready to make a character known as Jerry the King Lawler in a stupid video game, like a 10-year-old should be doing. But I'm 56.
He should just be in the video game. How's he not in the game already?
Well, they should actually have losers in the game. So
I'll make a Bob Cook, and the next time I see you too, we'll share Mountain Dew together.
yeah, if you make a Bob Cook, upload it to the web. What do you call it? Communities there on Xbox, and I'll download it.
There you go. Well, Bob, man, it was really a pleasure chatting with you, man. Interesting, fun stuff here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Are you going to be at Joe's Fighting for a Cure 7?
Yes, absolutely. Or will you be there?
Oh, yeah, I'll probably be there. Just not going to wrestle, but I'll go say hello to the people that are there. The legends. I won't talk to the peons, but I'll talk to Mick and Luke and Haku. But the rest of them, they're on their own. But I'm going to show up.
So you're not going to talk to me?
I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I heard Joe's been in a lot of controversy lately with all this craziness.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too. Yeah, there's so much inner fighting too going online right now, man. I feel bad. I'm in the middle, and I'm just like, I like everyone. I don't want anyone. I hate seeing that.
Yeah, I try to stay out of it because it's just you can't say anything nowadays, and you're either a hater or a racist, or you're something that you're not, and you can't defend yourself because the people who think you are just idiots.
Yeah, and then God forbid you go to defense for someone, and now people put you in the same category. Like, well, no, I'm just defending his point of view, or I don't think he said what you think he said, and then you can't win.
It's like you hear that company Pro Wrestling Tees is being deemed racist because they tried to protect their business. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, what happened with him?
Well, supposedly they were like being called a racist company because they're taking measures to protect their store in Chicago, which is just insane.
that is
these things up. I mean, I don't have anything against peaceful protests, but if you're out there looting and destroying, you're just as big a piece of crap as the guy who killed the guy. I don't care how you slice it.
I think it's kind of crazy that these, especially like you said, Pro Wrestling Tees, they're relatively small companies to a large degree, and all these small companies, getting hurt. What is that? What's that solving? And now you're hurting innocent people. that's a crime on its own.
I mean, I saw they burned stores in Tampa. They burned like a Champ Sports Good and some mom and pop shop. I mean, it's insane. You see that video of Tyson O'Neill? That was really good stuff he said, or Titus O'Neill.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I meant to check it out. I saw he posted something. Video.
Yeah, very good. Very good what he said. And I don't like Tyson or what's his name? Titus?
Titus.
I'm not a fan of his wrestling, but I'm a fan of his adult mentality.
I was doing his barking call or whatever he does.
Well, I try to avoid doing his bump at that Royal Rumble show, but I'm too old for that kind of crap.
Do you believe he planned it, or do you think he just fell on his face and now acts
No,
like he
no, I
planned it?
think I don't. Why does he say he planned it?
At one point he did. I couldn't tell if he was joking or not, or if he's just trying to
No,
save face.
I don't believe he planned it at all. I believe he's one lucky guy though, because right where his head went,
Yes.
literally 5 inches up, there's a freaking steel beam. I don't think he planned it for a second. I think he just got lucky.
Yeah, because no, it's true. Like you said, like even if he did plan it, I'm sure he would have checked it with somebody, and they probably would have said, "No, there's a beam there. God forbid you hit that."
Yeah, it's like, why would you plan that? Okay, I'm gonna make myself look like a complete idiot for the whole world to see. Yeah, that's really brilliant.
Well, it got him more TV time than it ever
That's
did for a
true,
little,
but I mean,
but it did lead to nothing.
but not in a positive way.
Right? Yeah.
But who knows? People are whacked. People say things nowadays and they become famous, so maybe he did plan it.
That is true. Sometimes he can get you a contract.
I'm gonna go on line and call everybody the N word when we get off here and make myself famous.
Oh well, I'll post the interview saying, "Hey, I interviewed that guy right before he went crazy."
Yeah, right before he went nuts. He said he was gonna do that. I knew he was gonna do that.
I thought he was joking.
Can't believe he said no.
Well, Bob, my man, I'll let you be. See you hopefully in November for Fighting for a Cure, maybe some Malenko shows, so on and so forth, and we'll share Mountain Dew, man. You have a good one.
All right, take it easy.
Thank you guys for checking out some Kayfabe chats here, Kayfabe Corner, Jordan Pierce Owens. That was Bob Cook, and as always, keep it Kayfabe.